You're watching the Cannabis Broadcasting Group here at cbgtv.com. The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or cbgtv.com. The medical and health information shared does not constitute a physician-patient relationship. It is provided for general informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional care. Accordingly, you are encouraged to consult and speak openly with the appropriate care professionals.
Oh, it's 2:03, but we're a little bit late because that's how it goes on Green Crush. Always 2:03 Tuesdays and a little bit late. They say when your number comes up, you're dead, but not if your number is 5. Stage 5. I know you've been told cancer only goes up to stage 4 and that there's no such thing as stage 5, to which I say, exactly. And isn't it fun? What is Green Crush? It's cannabis. It's crushing cancer with cannabis. It's using cannabis to become aware of the lies and the laws that prevent access to the cannabis that crushes the cancer. But we can't put all that in the title. That's just too long of a thing. That's what it is, though. It's new information and old suppressed awareness coming to the light so you don't have to. Facts that, when fully understood, will crush the laws that illegally prevent cannabis access. Can access now. I can. Our right. Our plant. But I could not fit all of that into the title of the show. This is Green Crush on the Eggplant Digital Network. Yeah, that's Paul Flynn, the MP from England over there in the UK Parliament. We're going to talk to Paul soon. We're going to get Paul on the show because Paul is a parliamentarian, a decent fellow, and he would like to express to you what we always express to you, that when the law doesn't make sense and the government's being an ass, you just say that's it. And that's what this episode of Green Crush will be focusing on in a lot of different capacities. So here we go. Green Crush is right now we are at the beautiful downtown studios of what are we doing here? 234 King Street in the famous King Street area and of Toronto, which is just a little bit east of where the bankers hang out. But this is, in fact, episode number 9.
Number 9?
Yeah, that's it. Number 9. Yes, number 9.
Number 9?
Yeah, this is the 9th
Number
one.
9?
Mm-hmm.
Number 9?
Yeah, we're not doing 10
Number
yet.
9?
This is number 9.
Number 9?
Yeah.
Number 9?
And I know that because last week was number 8, and 8 was a big one for us. Thank you for everybody tuning in. I hope it was the information that you were enjoying. And our theme song, The Reflection by Legna Zeg, slightly altered for the time allowance. That makes me an arranger somehow, because I cut that together for us to get, because I liked it, but it was 2.5 minutes long, so that's no good. No one's going to listen to that in these times. But if you're just joining us, this is a show that your friends told you to listen to, and the reason was because they cared about you to hear the truth about some of the things in our society, medically speaking, through cannabis that can be accessed. And we talk about the police and the way they interact with the cannabis, both on and off duty, and within and without their legislation. and we talk about the science of it and what it can do. We talk about the history of it. Got to get more to that shortly. Had planned to do more things along that line, but the events of the day dictate otherwise. And we do a lot of different topics. And today we have a guest coming in. I just cleared my throat on the air. That's how you can tell this is not, an ABC broadcast or a CBS broadcast. And plus the things that we talk about. But if you've found this show by hearing about it from a friend or a doubter, thank you for listening, because maybe you're listening for someone that you know or yourself, someone who's been locked out of the conventional doors of science. Number one being chemo, the door number two being surgery, and door number three, radiation. But here on this show, we represent access to the fourth door. And I hope you can find here the information that will help you the way it did help me. And if you're trying to remember exactly how you found us, I'll say that maybe you went to at Green Crush Pod, and if you're trying to remember where we are on Facebook or any of those places, just go to at Green Crush Pod, where the Green Crush grows. That's where it grows. I wish it grew here, actually. I say that symbolically, but what I would like to do is, here comes a coffee. The machine just got repaired. Thank you so much. It's coffee time, everyone. I just read a survey that says coffee is terribly good for you. And on the weekend, I read another one that said it's actually bad. And then another one that said it was quite good. But right now, it's delicious. We'll discuss the good and the bad, and we'll affix it to the cannabis issue instead. We have a ton of stuff to cover on this episode. And when I say a ton, I am not only exaggerating, I am using an inapplicable unit of measurement. It's not a ton. Okay, it's just some time. It's a different issue. So without further ado, and when you use your time to listen to this, we'll also include a free interview with top-notch expert, normal person Kellyanne of Coming Out Green. How interesting? Well, she's an expert in normality. What is he?
Long enough, and I can move the world. The power of a lever is practically unlimited.
Oh, that's true. We have the power of the lever coming on. That's a cool segment. What is that? That's a power of the lever. I'm going to put that back again because I wasn't ready for that yet. Here we go.
Long enough.
Hang on. Here we go. That's great music, huh? It's like Superman or something.
Give me a lever long enough, and I can move the world. The power of a lever is practically unlimited.
Okay, why is that on the show? We'll get to that later. The power of the lever. It's policy lever. And it's just as applicable now as it was when that little song and industrial video were made to explain just exactly how the powers that be making the money anyway, are able to influence what seems to be open thought. What is in fact nothing more than a stricture. So our guest today, Kellyanne, she is a normal person, and you want to know why that's interesting? It's because that's what makes her uniquely poised to discuss her journey, because it could be just like your journey. Maybe you weren't some goofball comedian on a wackadoodle comedy show. And you don't have the stand-up comedy background of coming through this terrible stuff and everybody thinks you're crazy anyway already going into it. So that's, maybe you don't have that issue and you're just a normal person and you're very skeptical of this whole cannabis thing. Well, that's why Kellyanne is here. She's with Coming Out Green, which means that's when you tell people, screw this, I'm not hiding it anymore. It's ridiculous to hide it. It's been implemented as a tool of shame by these punks. We'll get into that later, but she is she could just be like you, a normal person seeking to go through the fourth door of cannabis to the fifth stage of cancer, aka life, out of unbearable disease and through to the other side to get here today, at least in my case, using cannabis oil. The oil. And before that, Kellyanne was enjoying the life of obeying her parental programming and never having had one puff of a joint in her entire life. And yet somehow when the chips were down and she was a physical mess, she turned to this, and it's a great story because she's here and she's doing fantastically well. So I'm glad to have her on. We'll bring her on shortly. But first, now we need to turn the page. That's what we're doing. This segment is called Turn the Page, and PAGE stands for Politicians Against Green Everywhere. What's up with that? Once again, we are fortunate enough to be coming to you live at 2:03, and we're always a little bit late. From the Pacific Junction Hotel number 234 on Toronto's storied King Street East. Come and learn different ways to fight cancer. Stay for the healthy food and drinks. Brought to you by Eggplant Digital Creations. I should read that again. Come to learn different ways to fight cancer. Stay for the tasty food and drinks. That's a pretty dichotomous request. And both of them are good ideas, by the way. Eggplant Digital Creations is running the show here. This is the brainchild of Eggplant Digital. Eggplant Digital. We create creations and deliver them to your car. See job availability for corporate slogan writer. Corporate slogan writing. We tell you what to do. All right, let's move into the show. There's some nice people walking by today. We're having people come in and watch us now, and it's strange because they see me, and then 7 seconds later, they hear what I said. And maybe if you put that much of a time lag in it, it makes more sense, hopefully. I don't know. Okay, so next segment right here is, well, we have to get straight away to the Ontario government legislation effort regarding the availability of cannabis to anybody that wants to use it. And the news is that it's not very good. Not very good at all. Here it is, Ontario to create cannabis control board. Focus on the word control. And it's opening up 60 storefronts, ladies and gentlemen. Have you seen how large Ontario is, by the way? Or maybe the folks going to fix themselves getting off the opioids live close to one already. The Ontario government will announce, and did announce on Friday, that it will create a cannabis control board. But that's not exactly what they announced. We'll get into that. And they're going to open up 60 storefronts to manage the sale and distribution of marijuana in the province. Restricting the marijuana sales to those 19 and older, although if you need to get into the Army, I'm sure they can make an exception by a year, and a year above the minimum age recommended by the federal government's cannabis task force. I don't know if that's the deal, but you know, they tell you certain things you could do at an age. Like, why would you be able to drive around in a car at 16 if you can't even, takes you 3 years later to sort out rolling a cigarette? The 30 to 60 stores selling marijuana will not be housed inside the existing LCBO stores, et cetera, et cetera. So that's basically the blurb from those guys. And some folks are saying that the reason they're coming up with this right now is that Kathleen Wynne, I hate to say it, but she's the premier of the province, is in some trouble with a bit of a scandal that she's being called to testify in soon. And a lot of people are going to care a lot less about that than this whole cannabis thing. And so, you know, it's all bread and circuses again. But, you know, where has there never been a scandal with a politician before? That is most likely the case. It says here, accusing the Liberals of using the marijuana legislation as a smokescreen for scandals. Neither the Progressive Conservatives or New Democrat Party yet say how they would distribute cannabis next year, but they're not poised to. They're not poised to. So that's the trusted press again coming at us at the CBC. And let's see about bringing that gal up again. I want to see if I can talk to that one. There were a couple of points she was making that I thought we should all hear. This particular interviewee on the CBC. Let's see if we can get this coming in here. And they are speaking with the interviewer, Rosie Barton. I'll give you their names later. Here we go.
For sensible drug policy in Toronto is Nazli Megzoudi. She is of the International Center for Science in Drug Policy. Good to see you both, ladies. Nazli, I'm going to start with you. What do you make of the framework that Ontario announced in terms of distribution and sale of marijuana? Is it the right approach?
Yeah, I think there are actually a number of really positive announcements that were made today.
That's not where you start. That's not where you start, Miss, because Nazli, because that's not what was going on. What was going on was that there were a lot of bad things happening. There were far more bad things happening than good things happening. So focus on the main thing, but do go on. This is funny.
First being the age of access at 19. It was really important, I think, to align the age of access for cannabis with alcohol. Given that alcohol use at a young age is not safer than cannabis, we certainly wouldn't want to be incentivizing alcohol use.
This isn't about incentivizing alcohol use. This is just about cannabis. And here comes the beginning of the barrage of the false comparisons of similarity between two completely different substances in both their effect and results. But go on.
Over cannabis by having a higher age restriction for cannabis. So that was one positive element that we saw today. I think another really positive element was the fact that the storefronts will not be selling cannabis and alcohol together.
Oh, good. And they also won't be selling power saws and fishing rods together because they're also not related. This is not these people just skip right over. This woman is from some kind of access shame restriction facility.
We certainly don't want to be encouraging polydrug use, so the use of those two substances together. So definitely creating separate storefronts for cannabis also creates opportunities for things such as cannabis education as well.
What does that mean? Cannabis education. You can see that fastball coming down. This is indoctrination. If this is coming from a government that doesn't want to allow us to have it anyway,
which would be less likely or less easy to do within the context of existing LCBOs. So certainly some positive developments from Ontario's announcement today.
Okay.
That's her whole take right off the top. That's her whole take right off the top of what everybody else, including the staunch to the right Globe and Mail, the National Post, in both the editorial policies of the paper and several of the columnists inside, have completely picked apart this ridiculous scheme to limit something that belongs to us. And do we consider statistics such as California marijuana decriminalization, which is completely different from legalization, drops youth crime rate to record lows, says a study in the Huffington Post 2012. A drastic 20% decrease in juvenile crime, bringing the underage crime rate to the lowest level since the state started keeping records in 1954. And this is the general term of things. This is, in fact, the way it's going in so many of the jurisdictions, and this is why it's taking longer to roll out legalization. Because what are we going to do about the lack of work and actual things to do in the meantime if this thing really becomes legal? So, of course, they don't want that. And so that's what it was on the evening of the Thursday, Shifty, last week. They delivered the deliberately too late notice that there would be a massive and misguided further announcement the very next morning to usher in a paradigm shift from how we bust you now with cannabis over to how we're going to bust you later over cannabis. We control, you the majority. I'll bet the more discerning of you listening today are able to pick up from my tone that no, I don't endorse this any more than does the province of British Columbia, for example, who have an infinitely superior model from transitioning into providing willing customers and patients with a plant that can grow in the ground. And so many other jurisdictions that have been having a much better time of things than we are, clumsily being put forward into time that's going to cause an unbelievable series of lawsuits, and there'll be all kinds of wrangling as they try to untangle the messes that will come from this ridiculous disaster that these folks have put together. Now, I'm going to spend a bit of time now on the conference itself as soon as the tab comes up that I am looking for now. Live show. Okay, I thought I had everything pinned down here, but let's get that out of the way. Oh, here we go. Yeah. So these are the Three Stooges, folks. Now, I'm going to do some of it now and some of it next episode because it's too much to cover and too much to ignore. So rather than trying to get it all in, let's hear what this is. The Tiny Minister. I'm going to call this guy the punk in the middle. I don't really feel like I want to get into the names right now. There are three gentlemen up there wearing the suits and the tie. By the way, I'm telling the truth. Here's the tie. Where's this? Is the camera showing the tie? Is it this one? Okay. Tie. So I'm on board with the truth, right? That's the menu. And so here's the little guy. He comes trotting out and says, "Oh, thanks for everybody coming here. Nice to see you." And then he has this to say.
The Federal Cannabis Act proposes rules and restrictions around production, sale, possession, and consumption of cannabis that will apply across the country.
That sounds like freedom, doesn't it? Doesn't that sound awesome? This little guy, he's here's how we're going to run and own and operate every single aspect of your chosen particular medicine. And we'll get to why recreational is also medicine right now. It's also medicine because if you take in a certain amount and enough of it and properly as a food, not just smoking it, you kind of don't wind up needing a lot of medicine. It's a nutrient. It's a nutrient, folks. Like it's like kale. Okay, so there's a lot of cool stuff in there besides the part that gets you high, and it's meant to be ingested as a plant. And this is part of the greater problem, not just the focusing on letting everyone smoke a joint or a bong once in a while. But let's listen to this guy here again. He's got more to say.
But it also leaves the provinces and territories with some big decisions to make.
Why? Why don't you just accept the fact that most people either want to do it or don't want people to get busted for doing it? Why don't you sit down and just chill out a little bit instead of, being a servile parasite? No? You want to be a servile parasite? No, okay. Continue.
If passed, the federal bill will set into motion a once-in-a-generation change.
That's the problem. That's the problem right there, that everybody, well, it's good that they're doing something at least. No, it's not. You don't build a shitty foundation for your house or none whatsoever and then start wondering about 3 years down the road, oh, maybe we should renovate the basement, and then because the ceiling is collapsing because you didn't plan it out in the first place and you threw away the logic and the reason and the functionality of so many other successful models in the first place. Why the politicians against green everywhere? They have to make up this bullshit. They're constructing a paradigm for discussion that limits the possibilities of what really can happen. And that is a particular trick of governing. I've looked it up. I found it. It's an old one. So we'll get to that later. But let's let this little fella continue. He's so awkward.
For our society, the end of prohibition. Legalization of cannabis is a broad and complex topic.
Only because you're factoring in policing and incarceration and punishment and control out of the gate instead of addressing the true issue that's driving this matter, which is that we have the freedom and right to do this if we want.
That we know is accompanied by some concerns for Ontario families.
Some concerns for Ontario families. So this will be the group of people who are primarily, they've got a hunch. Man, I've been dealing with people like this over the past year, getting this show ready. People that have a hunch or a notion and no data and are of the type who consistently misinterpret the stated end point and they twist it to their own agenda. And in this particular case of the cannabis that I'm talking about, it's the government telling you what to do. Is nothing more than that. And you go, well, they're letting us do this. And it's a trick through misinterpretation.
Such a considerable change has rightly led to some anxieties about the impact of legalization on our communities, our roads, and our children's health.
And I'll tell you where a lot of those anxieties are coming from. They're coming from the policing establishment of the nation. Because if you had a genuinely freed up cannabis access, the right of the people, same as the folks sitting in the bar having a drink right now, if you were able to just let us do that, there would be far less for the police to do. Far fewer people to arrest. So, when they're talking about the roads and the use, they need to go right to, well, what about the police? What do they think?
The people of Ontario rightfully expect their government to approach legalization thoughtfully and responsibly.
Well, that's a true statement. We do expect you to approach it that way. It's too bad you haven't. With this nonsense, continue.
Which is why we have set out 4 key priorities for Ontario's approach to the federal plan.
4 priorities. Here we go.
Our aim from the start has been to protect youth, promote health and road safety, focus on prevention and harm reduction, and eliminate the illegal market.
So eliminate the illegal market by calling the people who've already figured out how to do it criminals and then taking it over themselves to become the Tony Soprano, and the legislature is the bada bing. And there's only 60 outlets for tons of people that probably close at 6 o'clock on Sundays. Really well thought out, guys. The product of a sober mind, this legislation. Good for you. Continue.
Even though the federal bill was only introduced a few months ago, our government has been working on these priorities for over a year now.
That just sounds like such a sucky thing to say. Oh, we've been working on this for a long time, particularly when if this is what you've been working on for a long time. Personally, if I were you, fella, I'd be saying, yeah. When the announcement came earlier this year, we started throwing things together and it's kind of fucked up right now. Well, we're doing the best we can, but, we're government people. And then you could go, well, at least this guy's telling the truth. But what he's saying here is they're extruding from their political orifice a bill so feces-like that I can't believe anybody spent a year on anything to come up with all of this. We have so many holes in this sieve. Here we go.
Guided by a dedicated legalization of cannabis secretariat, we have been working closely with our federal and provincial counterparts.
Who else? Who else have you been working with? Your federal counterparts of attorney generals and your provincial counterparts? Who else have you been considering when you're going to try to legalize in some way cannabis? Who else have you been consulting?
Consulting with public health experts.
Oh, okay. Public health experts who are connected to institutions that recommend against the use of cannabis, such as CAMH. Who else? Who else have you been consulting regarding the access to cannabis? Who?
Law enforcement.
Oh, right. Law enforcement. Okay. They're the next person on the list that needs to take in the news. Okay. So who else are you considering while you're dreaming up these crazy rules? Who else are you running it by?
Community agencies and municipalities from across the province.
Agencies and municipalities. That's who you're sharing it with. Okay, there must be one more group of people that you're going to discuss the access to cannabis situation with. There's got to be one more group of people. Come on, it's got to be saving the best for last. That's it. What? Who? When?
And learning from the lessons of the 8 U.S. states who have already legalized.
That's who you're consulting? States that have already legalized, and your model contains hardly any of the models that were shown to be working in a superior manner. There must be somebody else you've asked.
By bringing these different perspectives together.
Oh, no, you didn't ask anybody else. Those are the sole perspectives you brought together. Where the fuck are the users, stupid? Where are the people who have been using this being consulted? Where is the consultation from the medical people? Where is the consultation from the recreational people that want to use this stuff that you're like some kind of pesky nanny walking around telling us we can't have those? You've got some kind of a power complex, Sonny, and it doesn't show up on the outside. You're not walking around in truth. You've got to go to this link on YouTube, Ontario announcement of its regulation of marijuana in Ontario. They're still saying the word marijuana in the friggin' YouTube video. Now, I don't know who posted it, but it is the press conference. These folks and the perception of what this is and what it does, we're back into full of shitsville. Go on, chump.
We have developed a plan to ensure a safe and sensible framework as the federal government moves to legalize.
When a government agent says the word, we are going to do something sensibly, flip through your history books and tell me when that's ever happened. It hardly ever happens. This act itself is so full of holes. It's so full of shit. We don't have time. Well, I could do a 10-hour show on this. And if you put together everything that everybody's saying, it's unbelievable that these idiots spent a year trying to put something together that's basically a yoke around our necks and a denial of the facts. Listen to this.
Every decision that we are announcing today and everyone that we still have to make was guided by those two key principles. And with that in mind, in order to be ready for next July, our government will bring forward legislation this fall to ensure that even after legalization, cannabis remains a carefully controlled substance in Ontario.
It sounds like such a fun time. Where do you drink? Where do you sit back and knock back your G&Ts when you're dreaming up this poppycock, Sonny? Which Bay Street club do you sit around in? Is it the York Club, or what's the name of the thing? Is it the Toronto Club? Like, who comes up with this half-baked bullshit? While you sit around and drink whatever you want, coming up with this nonsense. Go on.
The key points of our approach fall into two broad categories.
Fairness and decency won't be among them. Go ahead.
Lawful use, that's the who, what, and where can cannabis be used. And retail, the how and where cannabis could be sold.
In other words, what you're saying is how you're going to control it and call a bunch of people who were already running an industry a bunch of criminals, and then taking that industry over yourself to be the criminal, and then understanding how you're going to be the one profiting from all of that sale after years and years of pain endured and arrests and getting fucked over with the family because somebody got arrested and gone to jail and ruined lives. And now all of that, you've actually still got people in jail right now from suffering from these things. And all of a sudden, you're going to profit from it? You don't know what you're doing. You don't understand the same basic principles that these kinds of manipulations throughout history have done. Okay, this is like a horror universe you've got going here. So maybe we should think about that before we decide what to do with these people. Folks, what I'm trying to get you to understand is that these folks are lying and manipulating in us. I'm trying to get an awareness in people together where you go, hey, this is all bullshit from this proposal coming through, and we've got to be able to do something about it. So here we go.
Let's start with the who.
Oh, he wants to start with the who. Okay, well, look, who apparently were the cops, right? That's basically what that was. But I'd rather listen to this one if that's okay. Let's start with the who.
Number 9.
Oh, that's the Beatles. Okay, that's not going to work. All right, so listen, we'll get back to this guy later, but
we will be proposing that 19 be the minimum age.
Yeah, you're
for
proposing
anyone to
that.
buy, consume, or have cannabis in Ontario.
That's the proposal. This whole thing, okay, is a proposal. That's what I want to remind everybody, that this is not an edict. This is not a law. This is not the way it's going to be, because when you have a proposal, it means something. It means that you are presenting an idea and putting it forward in the hopes that the recipient will say yes. And we are saying no, my little friend. We're saying no to all of this. This newest, latest, freshest, shameful announcement to the public from Kathleen Wynne, the premier, detailing in great measure what a corrupt, greedy asshole she is matched only by the sharp-suited scumbags pushing the big dollar agenda of control, sending the wrong messages about a healthful plant in a series of contrived policy levers. Remember, we were talking about policy levers before. Policy levers. Oh, yeah, that's a thing. That's definitely a thing. Why is a policy lever a problem for me? Well, basically, you're just using force and manipulation to achieve a desired outcome, and nothing could be further from democracy, which is the alleged model that these people who are keeping this substance away from us are running on. Does that make sense? You got that one? Some people argue it, but was that clear? I think so. I hope so anyway. So I'm going to try to get the right kind of sound for this, because I'm gonna kind of have to do that. Here we go. These creeps are creeping me out. So here we go. Let's talk about Kathleen Wynne's machinations, and let's bring up this particular article here that ties in with all of this and kind of explains it, what I just said there, in a bit of a freak out. Oh, it's subtle. All of a sudden can't open it up we don't have a internet connection. Is that right? The internet's been shut down. Oh, is that the deal? Okay. So we don't have an internet now. There's no internet connection. Oh boy, I guess I gotta fucking wing it. All right. Okay, all right. Fine and dandy. That's what we'll do. I'll just tell you exactly what I'm talking about with some stuff that isn't dependent on the internet. First of all, they are not legalizing it, okay? Understand that. They are not legalizing. Legalizing is a word that they are using to control the tone, to cast the spell, to affect your perception with a premeditated policy lever. I know. It sounds so democratic. Just like when the word marijuana was devised to stigmatize it, or calling it the devil weed. These are the same old tricks, like back from the initial days of cannabis prohibition, packaged up in a flashy new box, which is as big a compliment as could be pulled out of me regarding Kathleen Wynne. They are wickedly designing a series of legal leg hold traps that will eventually cause so many legal problems and put far too many people in prison under the new penal code involving cannabis compared to the old one. We all know the cops were never going to be okay with the reality of a genuinely decriminalized substance. They would have far less to do, fewer people to bust and process, a modern day realization that some policing is societally redundant and exists only for its own purpose, propagated merely to bring profit to the corporation that each police service is. After honestly decriminalizing the good green, the police budget would not only not need an annual increase, they could never justify keeping their current roster on duty. Some of them would have to be laid off. The Police Chief Society never want that, and neither would the police union, and they are a minority. So how come they get to do that? It's that policymakers have been pulling levers and bending science, ignoring the bounty of evidence to the opposite of their diktat, and shoving their harsh, scolding, disregarding bullshit down the throats of the majority with an absolutely regressive and repressive flexing of aggressive force. and I want to sue them. And so should you, based on ignoring copious evidence and choosing to set harsh policy against the sensibility of the evidence. They're spewing toxins into the water. They're participating in profiting from major environmental international mayhem. I'm all done following the lead of these same people, doing the same things over and over, and then telling people like myself and everyone else and my guest on the show who's fresh into the studio that we're terrible people and that this activity should be discouraged. Again, folks that don't use this stuff are telling us how it's going to go. And you have to look at their official point of view and look around the world and see how messed up it is and say, I'm done with this bullshit. And because these same instincts guided me well away from and beyond a guaranteed funeral 3 years back, I'm going to collect on that guarantee that fell through by allowing myself to just keep on using those same survival senses and these intuitions and awarenesses. They will proposal failed. Like the girl who doesn't want to go out with that particular dork to the high school prom. Sure, he proposed to her. Please come with me. I'll bring you a corsage or whatever the fuck they do at this age. But she turned him down, and we as the electorate and as the partakers thereof and the folks with the rights will not be dictated to by the likes of these idiots. We're going to do a video piece on these guys, okay? They were so funny. It was all kinds of fun. But right now, we have a special guest in the studio. Thank you for coming in. It's Kellyanne. We didn't get your last name.
It's Oxtaby.
Oxtaby. Okay, we need to go way closer. Russell, how's
sorry.
it going? That's okay. That's okay. We're going to make sure you got to lean in. Don't be any more. You don't need to be nervous out there.
Oh, no.
Because if you're in a little closer, it'll be the same amount of nervousness and we'll hear you better. So that's all I wanted to say about that. So thank you for coming in. You are here representing Coming Out Green.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about Coming Out Green, then we'll get into your story.
Coming Out Green, I'm building a site where people
A little
can...
bit closer.
Okay. Where people can come and find information about cannabis, about the different ways to consume cannabis, what it can help you with, just a place where people can feel comfortable without the stereotype or stigma of all the negativity that's out
provided by the people they pay taxes to tell them what's up. Right. Okay. Well, good. I'm glad you. And how did you find them? Are you the founder or
I'm the founder?
You're the founder.
Yeah,
okay.
It's my thing.
It's your thing. Okay. So Coming Out Green. So I guess the nature behind that is coming out. That's like parallel to the gender sort of issues coming out.
Standing up, speaking out.
Yeah,
being
you feel
proud
like
that you are able to consume a natural remedy for your illness,
and maybe
without
you were
shame,
doing it earlier without telling anyone because of shame.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, so Kellyanne, you're a woman in your 40s.
Yes.
And if you could sort of take us back to high school, did you ever smoke joints in high school?
No.
No, I already tipped that at the beginning of the show. You didn't go to the parties and smoke the joints. Were you drinking beer?
Parties.
You went to
I
the
was drinking
parties?
beer, but it was just never anything that crossed my radar. I just didn't feel I needed it. I had friends, and I never judged them. People can do what's good for them or what they feel is good for them. I'm never going to judge somebody for it, but it wasn't for me at that time.
Okay, so then you get out of high school and college, university, whatever.
Nope.
Never tried it there?
No.
You went there and you didn't try it?
No.
Okay, so all the likely entry points, you weren't a user.
No, I've been sitting in a room with people that, partake, but I hadn't myself.
So even at that point, you wouldn't support a legislation that would put your partaking friends behind bars?
Oh, God, no.
Right.
No.
So that's also the majority of people you speak with about these topics and that issue is the majority of people don't want this. I'm going to keep ramming that point home that the government that keeps pounding this stuff to us is very much on the thin end of the wedge. So tell us about, so you're moving out of college years and now you're pushing into your 30s, etc. And you're this person who never, condemns anyone who uses it, but you don't partake. And then one day you did. So just describe the series of events that took you to that day.
Well, I guess I was about 27 when I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia.
Okay.
And that it's a very painful illness. hurts to be hugged, to be touched. Even sometimes the clothes hurt to be on.
Wow.
So it's like kind of a constant 24/7 pain. And I've been on every medication that was out there that they recommended, including allergic shots where they take these huge needles and shoot them in your head, neck, back
Oh,
once a week. And crazy pain, but didn't help either. And I guess I was about 45 when I reached my end. Like the pain was just too much, and it just kept getting worse and worse. The medications they kept putting me on never helped me, just made me gain weight.
give us a couple of those if you can remember their names.
Tramadol.
Tramadol. That didn't work. What did that do?
Makes you gain weight. Causes almost like like tics. So you're like twitching and spasming.
And this is probably listed on the package, but you got to take it anyway.
Yeah, you have, your doctor says, oh, this will be good for you. Take it. So you think, okay, I'm going to trust my doctor. I'm going to take it.
Sure.
But side effects like bleeding on the brain, possible, your heart can seize. Like the
so luckily
side effects are crazy.
None of those happened to you.
No.
Did you discuss it? Were you getting any of the side effects or not?
I was getting the twitches and the muscle spasms and things like that. But my doctor said, oh, it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. It's like, okay, but I'm the one dealing with this.
Yeah, I was just going to say, did you mention it to him? And it's so often the same story. Have the same story.
Oh, yeah.
They ask you about, do you feel any side effects? Sometimes, and then sometimes you have to tell them. And then the same thing happened to me. It was like, yeah, actually, this is happening. Wow, that's they just doff it off like
here, try this one then. Or this one. And they just line them up as you go.
Right. So that happened, and you're on a series of different pain pills and different things.
Yeah.
And so then they're not working out.
Not working out. I was at a really bad place, and my nephews, who I love dearly, they recommended I try medical cannabis. And I was kind of like, well, I never thought about doing that. I'm not a smoker. So
and can
how's
I
that
ask,
gonna work?
At this age, at that time, what age were you?
45.
45.
Yeah.
And you're going down Cannabis Street for the first time. Well, God love you. That's amazing. That must have been sort of strange for you.
It was very strange.
Yeah.
But,
so your nephews, and I'm guessing they were high school or university aged, right?
Yeah.
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 And they recommended it. And so then how did you do it? What was your first foray into this?
Well, the first thing I tried to make a joint, like roll a joint.
Oh, how did that go?
Not too great.
Not good.
No, because I'm not a smoker. So I'm like, okay,
Right.
how do you do this? So
It's
I rolled
tough,
one.
Yeah.
Big inhale, burn my throat, coughing. My mother thought, okay, she's gonna die on me here.
Right.
And I didn't feel anything.
Oh.
So it was like, okay. And my nephew's like, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, I guess maybe you burned
okay.
it all.
So I decided to get a PAX, a vaporizer.
Okay.
To try and do it a different way because
this segment brought to you by PAX. PAX, the vaporizer, a tiny little thing that looks like a remote control from outer space and a UFO. UFOs brought to you by PAX. PAX. Once you get high on PAX, you see flying saucers. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
So you like that one?
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
Is that a cool one?
It's a really good one.
They've got these little steel plates in there. You have to kind of keep on top of switching those around.
Yeah, you have to keep it clean and everything. Otherwise, it kind of tastes kind of rank.
But it's super handy, though, right?
Oh, very handy.
You just zing it up, in and out.
Like,
you'll be using that to break the law shortly, hopefully.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Once they pass
what are they gonna do? Arrest me and throw me in jail?
I think they might.
Big deal.
I think you're a bad person, and we should
I'm very
persecute
outspoken, so they really don't want to put me behind bars.
Yeah, you'll just tell everyone else in there. So now you're doing the PAX. You went right from can't roll joints to the PAX.
Yeah.
And someone at a store was helping you understand how this machine worked and how you have to
No,
grind
I just
this
ordered
stuff.
it online. It got delivered.
Amazing.
My youngest nephew, who he's not a drinker, never has been. He prefers to partake in cannabis.
Sure.
So he was showing me how to use it, explaining things to me and everything.
He sounds like a reprehensible young man going by the government perception. We're trying to discourage this, you know.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so bad for you.
It's terrible. Here. Oh, God. Have another brandy.
It's so bad for you that we're going to open all those dispensaries and make money off of it, but don't take it.
Don't take it. Right. It's incredible, the paradox there. Yeah. So then, so you're rocking the PAX, and what are you finding about your painful medical condition, fibromyalgia?
Basically, it doesn't really take the pain away fully, but it's almost like it creates a barrier so that it's kind of wraps the pain up and separates it from you so that you can be in a headspace that you can deal with it better.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. I read something that I don't have the article in front of me, but there was a brain it used the brain barrier perception or something. I can't remember the exact thing, but it was where you do still have the pain, but it gets compartmentalized into a different place.
Yeah. So as long as you're not concentrating on it,
Yeah.
it's really not there.
Right.
So it's great to have that kind of relief when you're constantly under the barrage of pain.
Right. So how are you now with the fibromyalgia at this time?
I'm off all medications except for medical cannabis.
Well, that's a crutch. You shouldn't be using that as a crutch.
It's a gateway drug, and I might try crack next.
So that's really great. So how often do you partake, and in what formats? Is it always the packs or?
No, I use the packs just to get through until the medibles take effect.
The medibles.
Yes.
No, that's the medical edible.
Yes.
That is not in this new legislation.
No.
Not this proposal, I should say. It's not in there.
Is the cream.
Because we'll get to that later. Because we're already working on 60 stores for this gigantic province. Like, how big are we seriously compared to Texas? Does anybody know? Like, it's around the same, right? Not quite, but yeah, but 60 stores, that ought to do it. So they've really got their shit together, and well, they've really got their shit anyway. So what are you gonna do with the future of like, where can we find you on Facebook, etc.? This is Coming Out Green.
Coming Out Green, or comingoutgreen.com or comingoutgreen.social.
Okay.
So the site is going to be up by the end of the month. There's going to be a social aspect where people can chat, just like Facebook, send messages, discuss, and I'll be available to answer questions and help them out. There'll be an information area, and also all the information that's going on out there, the studies, anything people are looking for to make them understand cannabis better, to feel better about partaking in it, to medicate, and to improve their lives and health.
Right.
So
well, I guess we also need an education indoctrination program, or whatever they're going to counter us with, because one of the things they're doing in the legislation is, as well as frowning upon it and profiting from it, as they're also telling us that there's some education coming along the way. We're going to be providing the education, and if these people are already saying it's bad, it's wrong, these people are criminals, etc., I can't wait to see this indoctrination.
Yeah.
Have you seen the CAMH recommendations of the use of it? The number one recommendation is don't use it.
Yeah.
That's the number one. We know you're gonna, but don't. So that's the mindset of the people that are going to provide the education. And I'm as frustrated with them for doing it as I am surprised and disappointed in people who are generally walking around out there for believing in it.
Yeah.
I can't understand why anyone is taken by this.
Even my parents believe
three-card
in it now.
Monty.
So, and
even your parents.
My mom's 73 and my dad turned 80 in March.
So tell us about the time you were 40 something and you decided to tell your mom and dad that that you were using cannabis. That didn't go
over well because they'd been bothering my nephews for years about, you're going to get schizophrenia. You can't take that. Don't do that. It's bad for you. Don't you watch those commercials and don't you look at the information? It says, no, don't use cannabis. And I just said to them, well, it's my last resort. What else am I going to do?
Full-blown arguments? Like
not too bad.
Thanksgiving table knockdown dragouts?
So I kind of knocked down all their points. I knocked down one by one with actual factual information and studies.
Actual factual.
Yeah.
That's usually good for an argument. People get really upset when that happens.
Yeah. So, and now my mom actually is partaking in medical cannabis to help with her fibromyalgia and lupus.
Oh, wow. How's that going with lupus? What does she say about that?
It helps her a lot. So she's cutting back on the amount of medication, like the dosage. She's sleeping. She's not having as much pain. And one or two mishaps with enjoying the cookies too much.
What happened? What happened
I made
there?
her some cannabis cookies. Just,
I
told her
stories.
You have to start slow, little amount, start slow. But she was breaking off little pieces all day long because, hey, these taste really good.
And she's snapping them down like a normal mummy kind of does cookies.
She's like lying in bed going, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. And I'm like, you're not gonna die, Mom. Relax.
Everyone's had that
Just
experience.
Take a deep breath, close your eyes. And she ended up being fine, obviously, because nobody ever dies of cannabis.
Right.
But she still continued after that because she knew it was her fault. She didn't follow the instructions properly, and when you take too
She
much,
thought
that
she
can
could do
happen.
it.
Yeah,
She
it's
thought
like,
she could do
but
it.
they
Yeah.
taste good.
Yeah. That's funny. She is now listening, or did you tell her you were coming on?
She's gonna be having surgery on Friday, so she's getting ready for.
Oh, okay.
So
Well,
yeah.
good luck with surgery, and I hope I'm glad, Mom, that you relented, and that you're also getting some relief out of this property. So if you're just understanding what we're talking about now, folks and ladies and gentlemen and people and stuff, is that the whole concept of the medical user and the recreational user is far too blurry to begin to try to legislate against or for. I mean, you might as well try to set rules on which way chimney smoke can puff out of the top of a building, because it's not really going to be something you can control. And the longer you fight against it, of course, you have to understand there's obviously the desire is to have these black markets created. This is a time-worn kind of through history thing where when you limit access to something, you inherently propagate or create or boost the black market. So while they say it's important to them to deal with the black market, maybe they just mean that they're dealing with the black market. That's basically what they're doing at that point. But I'd like to thank you for coming in and tell us if you're going to have any events coming up or any kind of thing like that. Do you have anything to mention?
There'll be some things happening once I launch, and I'll let you know.
And what kind of time frame are we looking for?
Hopefully by the beginning of October, end of September, beginning of October. So I'm doing this all on my own. So it's
for Coming Out Green.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, and for coming on. And get on Facebook and take a look at Kellyanne at Coming Out Green, and she will explain it all to you. And now I'm going to spend a little bit of time just before we go on our crazy legal system that has inflicted upon. Yeah, it's Canada time. All right, so our legal system. This is from Smoker's Guide, by the way. Solid information here, folks. In 2015, Justin Trudeau was elected Canada's new prime minister in a landslide victory. One of his campaign promises was to legalize cannabis. 2 years later, recreational cannabis still isn't officially on the books. People are still going to jail, and as a legal substance, it's not a thing. But Canadians did accomplish one thing. We proved we may be the only population in the world to take the word of a campaigning politician as truth. Why do you believe these things? At least until Trump came along. Maybe it was because medical cannabis was already legal in Canada. Maybe it's because the culture was already pretty relaxed. Maybe because Canadians were just excited to get rid of Harper. But people seem to take Trudeau's election as though cannabis laws were automatically written. At present, there are 100 plus dispensaries in the Greater Toronto area and 200 plus in the British Columbia province, with more shops and vape shops popping up every day. And as the raids in early 2017 have shown us, while weed might appear legal in Canada, we're still working out the kinks and trying to write the laws. But seriously, 100 dispensaries in the Greater Toronto area. Well, they keep getting busted, and then they reopen. And when the official plan comes together, I guess the idea is that all of those will close. No one else will care about that. And then 60 other stores will pop up covering Ontario. Not just Toronto, but Ontario. So this is completely unworkable. This is a series of lies. And we have to wonder why it is that our politicians consistently pull this kind of thing. And when you look to ancient buried histories, you understand that there are four major cons going on and have been through millennia from the ruling people. A world system, a world government is the product of millennia of development and use. And today's users are these idiots that we see now at Queen's Park who take allegiance and swear to the Queen and pretend they're representing us, but they're representing the crown. One of the major cons of course, is the religion technology con, where basically you got a scientific priesthood which attains power and essentially a monopolistic position to dictate what the laws of physics and chemistry are, etc. So that's why we're hearing about how terrible cannabis is, when in fact we know fucking well, right, that it's the opposite. And if you use it incorrectly, there's going to be some problems. Just like everything else at the hardware store, or all of the windows on the buildings that can easily be punctured and damaged by throwing something through it. And the next thing you know, there's a piece of glass cutting someone's... You see what I mean? You can make a bunch of shit and threats out of everything. But this is all about control here. Some of the consequences of this particular phenomenon include foreclosing exploration of deeper, more powerful, and more universal knowledge, as well as alternative outside-the-box ways of looking at things. And most importantly, fostering eternal dependency at the expense of people's realizing their own true nature and actualizing their own true potential. But one who is awake and empowered cannot be exploited. And therein lies one of the major reasons all of this obfuscation and lawmaking is taking so long to get into place. They're shitting their pants. That more people are going to realize these facts. And the smarter you get, the tougher you are to govern. Join me, won't you? The esoteric heart of the con is that all of the technological development and manipulation that occurs in the realm of science, including the design and engineering and manufacture of all industrial products involving scientific knowledge, basically everything made today, are accomplished by projecting into the outer world things that we, as spiritual beings, are inwardly capable of knowing, being, and doing in, by and through ourselves. Then we've also got the law con. The law government con, consisting of instilling as deeply, securely, pervasively, and unquestioningly as possible the belief that men must have governments, that some people must be governed by other people. We're going to end that shit.
To break the law.
Welcome to Green Crush. We are going to crush it today because it's not just green on the outside. It's also red and pink and juicy in the middle. It's watermelon. Watermelon is going to be our guest today. And if you don't know Watermelon, too bad for you. She's great. And you'll get to know her. So it'll be okay. You'll get to fix the defect in your life that is you don't know who Watermelon is, and you'll have a much better time of things. On Green Crush, what is Green Crush? People ask me that all the time. What does it even mean, that Green Crush? What is that? How come? Like, if it's green and it's crushed, like it's Candy Crush? So here's what it is. Green Crush is green is cannabis. This demonized plant over the centuries. Cannabis. That is the green part. So I just didn't want to, I couldn't do like, this show is called Cancer Things Dealt With in a Cannabis Kind of Way. That was too long. And, it didn't sound concise, because you have to consider that while you're doing these things and while you're trying to promote this aspect of a lifestyle that doesn't need to be shat upon by those who lord over us. What we're trying to do here is just explain to people that the green is the cannabis. Okay, this is really simple so far, right? Like you figured that out by now. The green is the cannabis, and the crush is what can happen to cancer if you apply the cannabis correctly. Which doesn't mean the old bullshit phrase that everybody knows that, like smoking a joint can't cure cancer. You're full of shit. Like, you can't believe how many times I've heard people with voices almost as ridiculous as that. But you always have to embellish a little bit, right, in the entertainment business. But they do kind of get upset about it, and they don't know what it means. So basically, once again, it's not hard. green is the cannabis, and crush is what it does to cancer. And therefore, you're also crushing the laws, the so-called made-em-ups by the so-called people that have more authority than us, to make up a bunch of strictures that prevent access to a healthful commodity, quality plant item, free thing that comes out of the ground when you get right down to it. So that's what all of this is about. But, you know, I really, I can't fit all of that in the title. So we'll just do the show as is, and we're going to have Watermelon on, and she's fantastic. And I'm also going to cover a few other things. Let's get busy with the show. This is Green Crush. You're listening to us on the Eggplant Digital Network from the Pacific Junction Hotel in Toronto, 234 King Street East. Always good stuff to eat. Come in and see. Yes, the Eggplant Digital Network, Canada's leading creative content hub, with Russell on the control board, and we'll need him today because Watermelon's here. We're going to go back and forth on Skype. And so this is where you folks who don't have a video access on this particular podcast are at a slight deficit. I admit it. We're not trying to gear things for the visual solely, but sometimes it's fun to do. But you can also listen to it on your download on your iTunes. It's still going to be a good show, despite the fact that you'll miss out on some of the viz. So what's getting crushed today is, this episode will be combining. I realize that a lot of these things are like Venn diagrams, where I can't really even have on this show, I can't even have a topic that stands alone sometimes. They all merge together. And this one is going to combine cops or truth. It's always one or the other. And nopioids, saying no to opioids. I'm speaking extra slowly for the would-be animators. We've already had some pretty funny animated clips come up of the show getting done. This seems to be a thing now, a field of creative funniness that was, I didn't really realize it before, but a lot of people have had their stuff cartoonified, and it's kind of funny and definitely flattering. So thanks for a couple of those. And what's the next thing? Oh yeah, so cops are truth, nopioids, and unblinded me with science, because there's a lot of science at hand here today. And but we're going to start by unraveling the bullshit that was the Ontario proposal. It's an Ontario proposal to handle the cannabis laws, because Canada itself, the government of Canada, has been stating for some time now, despite the constantly arresting people for partaking in something that is going to be available to everybody soon or something. Is that how it goes? I don't know. I lost track of the plot, the federal plot. It drives me nuts. But basically, these guys have laid down that they're going to have a July, probably the punted down the road, but it's a July 1st announcement day, an enrollment day, an enlistment day, an enactment day of the legal system wrapped around the bud. And there is one now, and it's going to change. It's basically like, how did we used to bust you before involving cannabis? And we're going to be transitioning to a thing in July 18 called, this is how we're going to bust you now for cannabis. So it's different stuff. You got to pay attention to what's being manipulated around here. So that's going to be happening next year. But then the Ontario government has jumped the gun, and they say they've been working on a proposal for about a year now. And this proposal was put to us not this Friday gone by, but the one before. And last week's episode, I kind of got cut off. I wasn't able to finish things. Something happened to the internet. So this is part 2 of that. I think I was going to stretch it to that anyway, because there's so much shit to shovel. But yeah, they came out with this proposal. Now, this is not just a proposal. This is, if this were to be carried out, and it would take an incredible amount of foolishness to make sure that happened, it would be one of the most ridiculous series of constructs that are going to absolutely harm and hurt people in a legal sense. And you can't believe anyone worked on it for a year, because everyone that heard about it in a couple of days or a day or that afternoon were going, this is crazy, from all of the right-wing publications in this country, the more centrist ones and the ones on the left. No one thinks this is a good idea. And it's instantly provable when you listen to some of the things they have to say. So before we get to that, we have another thing I'd like to do here. And that is to define the word proposal. Now, everyone's freaking out about the fact that these are the new Ontario laws and they're totally screwed and it's not fair. Yeah, I know. But it's a proposal. So the dictionary says that a proposal is the act of proposing. It is a plan that is proposed. It is an offer. Let's go to Merriam-Webster dictionary just for a second, like you don't always. The definition of proposal is an act of putting forward or stating something for consideration. It's a suggestion by a bunch of fucking idiots. You should see this thing. We covered a bunch of it last week, and here we go right back to, now I don't have this man's name. He's the Attorney General of Ontario. I can get away with that because I'm not really like a news guy. I'm just a guy that reads news and brings some of it to use. So this guy, I don't know what his name is. He's the shortest one in the middle there. He started off the talk. We got on some of this last week on episode 9. And this guy is very uncomfortable in his body language to me. I don't like any of these guys in their body language, but we'll get to that later. But listen to what this guy has to say. We'll just pick him up in midstream. It doesn't even matter. It's not like you have to go to the beginning to fully comprehend the whole thing. Like, you don't need to drink an entire river to understand how much water is going on in there. You can stop here, stop there, go fishing, whatever. You don't need to take the whole thing in. So we're just going to lap at the brook here of the babbling nonsense that comes from these overpaid idiots that have been spending a year to come up with a plan that immediately the next day, even the RCMP said, we won't be ready by then. So this year of planning thing that they say they're doing, like, none of that planning involved picking up the phone and calling the cops to see if they could fucking handle it or not. Now, please don't confuse this in my sense of like that I condone what the officer's response has been drawn up to be ahead of time to guarantee as many busts as there were before it was legal. I don't know all of that. But what I do know is these cats are super uncool and they are super complicated, and they're not selling something amazing. Like, I said this before, like if you see Elon Musk or one of these guys comes out with a fantastic new revelation, they're proud, they're happy, they're beaming energy. These guys look like they're trying to get away with something. Like little kids, one of them broke the cat's tail and none of them want to admit who done it. It's so fucking transparent. But anyway, let's get a little of this guy on the screen. And
widely led to some anxieties about the impact.
That's what I want. Okay, this is what he says here. He says that the changes of the laws that are being discussed rightly lead to anxiety. Now, what kind of fucking idiot says, hey, that's good that leads to anxiety? I understand there are concerns and issues, particularly to those of the ignorant who don't realize the impact and the efficacy of this substance, if you would like to call it that, as a problem. But these guys here are laying down a system that is cartoonish if you really just listen to what they're saying. So I do have them on the screen, but maybe we'll just listen to it. But listen to this guy. He says, rightly led to anxiety. There's no statement where that would really sound like a sensible thing to say. And they're all about being sensible, aren't they? So how you could rightly lead yourself to anxiety. And this is just like a minute into this press conference. And so right away, the flags go up and go, this guy wants to lead me to anxiety. Luckily, there are drugs for that, huh? So listen to this guy warm up to here, and he's got something to say after that as well.
Topic. that we know is accompanied by some concerns for Ontario families. Such a considerable change has rightly led to some anxieties about the impact of legalization on our communities, our roads, and our children's health. The people of
Okay, so that's the first thing. He's concerned about the children's health. They're always going to put that up first, which would be great if that's what they really meant.
Ontario rightfully expect their government to approach legalization thoughtfully and responsibly.
But they don't, because they've come up with things that have them at odds with the police. Like the police can't even believe that these folks are trying to push through what they're trying to push through. So, as I was trying to say earlier before I rudely interrupted myself, don't mistake that on my part as an endorsement for what the police intend to do in reflection to these or in creation to this new paradigm they're involved in. I don't endorse it. I'm just acknowledging that they do have a response. They will be setting up new ways to arrest people and et cetera. And their infrastructure that they want to hoist, even though I might be against it, they're telling the government, we can't get it up in time. You know, which is not, you know, hard to imagine if you've ever seen some of the members of the government. But anyway, we'll move on to this other chunk. I got a few of these that I wanted to dip into, so we'll see how we do with that. Here we go.
We have a responsibility to ensure that our young people have every opportunity to realize their full potential. A responsibility to do what we can to protect and educate our youth about the dangers of substance abuse.
Okay, you're going to educate them about the dangers of substance abuse. Are you also going to educate them about the positive aspects of this particular plant? That's got to be the next part of your sentence.
A responsibility to ensure that all Ontarians are protected from the dangers of second-hand smoke, and that includes from cannabis.
Okay, so then answer me this. Why is it then, this is under the proposal, why is it that if you want to make sure that you're being responsible and you're limiting cannabis usage to the home, and what if there are children in that home? Then what happens? Oh, you can go outside? Okay. Well, what if your balcony is one of those, you know, those kind of balconies where it's just a little panel of something and then the neighbor's right over there? What if it's one of those? While you're outlawing vape lounges and places to go and do it in public under the consenting people. This is how sensible this plan is. You can sit through all 36, 37 minutes of this psycho babble and pick one of these nonsensical pieces of meat out of your teeth every 10 seconds, sometimes less than that. Total fiction. Here are the dangers of... Why don't we talk about the dangers of fire? Why don't we talk about the dangers of Wi-Fi at 5G? Or, oh, sorry, is somebody already heavily profiting on that? Oh, okay. Leave it alone then. Like, this agenda becomes clearer and clearer with every aspect of the story that is obfuscated by these trained monkeys. Go on, sir. Oh, is it going to... Now it's buffering. Buffering brought to you by broadband. Broadband brought to you by the internet. The internet brought to you by, I don't know. Looks like we're not going to have that one coming in. All right. You know, every week something goes wrong with the tech on this fucking show. It drives me out of my fucking mind. We've been trying to pin everything down, and today we had somebody add some drama to that scene.
And while we may explore the possibility of allowing licensed establishments for the consumption of cannabis in the future,
you might allow it. And then what he was going to say was, but I lost my internet again, was that, you know, we'll think about it. We're not going to bring that aspect up right now. While there are salient, crucial, foundational aspects of properly getting any kind of transition that will be successful together, we're just going to throw up a bunch of sticks in a fucking thunderstorm. So it kind of goes on like that. And I guess I'm getting the message from our broadband provider that I've done about enough of the old YouTube clippy clips. And that's okay, because it's time now for me to focus on dialing up. We're going to go to the Skype machine now. And thank goodness we have a friend today that come on the show. She's wonderful. I'm going to ding her up right now. Hang on. Mary Jean Dunstan. So we're not quite there yet. Oh, gosh.
I was just wondering if that crazy guy came back or what. Oh,
it's me. It's me. Are you there? Can we see your picture? There she is. Fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to bust this wide open. And all right, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure. This is so weird because, where do you often, introduce someone and you can actually see them at the same time? Usually it's supposed to be off stage or, whatever. But this is cool.
You ready?
Okay, so here is, folks. This is please don't cover your face. I mean, God, that's
okay. That's come out like ta-da!
I know you're full of ta-das, as I recall. So, folks, guess what? I've been in stand-up comedy for a long time. I started in Vancouver, and that's where I met Watermelon, like back in the early 90s. Yeah. And she was marauding Wreck Beach, which is known for its recklessness in its clothing code. Everybody takes it off and has a lot of fun and takes it easy. And Watermelon would not only provide refreshments in the way of saleable goods and drinks, they were packed with cannabis too. I mean, it was like living in a dream world. And she was always ahead of the curve, and I knew that. But everything I've been through with my particular journey through and back and forth through cancer and using cannabis, and what I've thought in retrospect about Watermelon, Mary Jean Dunstan, is amazing because she was so far ahead of the curve at the time. And so now I'm so thrilled to understand that somebody with such deep roots in the integrity of this plant and what it does and how it works, and is aware of all of the bullshit that comes from the propaganda. You're actually running for office, and I'm so happy to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Thanks, Alan.
So I see you got some hula hoops behind you there.
Yeah, I got some hula hoops. That's my new fitness, and I sell hula hoops at my candy store.
You found them?
I own a candy store that sells hula hoops.
CBG TV is the way to broadcast your message to an audience looking for your products or services. Affordable advertising, personalized campaigns, special promos, event attendance, and more. Talk to someone today, in person or by email. Find us online at www.cbgtv.com. Or you can send an email to admin@cbgtv.com. Additionally, if your phone scans QR codes, scan this one to learn more.
We are the Cannabis Broadcasting Group here at cbgtv.com.